All right, picture this. It's late at night, you're on a train, and it's just hurtling through the pitch black darkness. Most of the passengers are fast asleep in their compartments, and you've got that steady, rhythmic humming of the tracks in the background. Honestly, it's a completely mundane, ordinary journey. But by the time the sun comes up, this perfectly normal train ride is going to transform into one of the most baffling, unexplained disappearances you could possibly imagine. So let's dive right into the chilling timeline, the puzzling evidence, and the theories that still surround the mystery of the empty seat in today's explainer.
Fast forward to 5:30 in the morning. Imagine the absolute ghost ship reality of this scene when the compartment is finally checked. A small black suitcase is just tucked neatly away. A pair of shoes left right there on the floor. And a cell phone resting super casually on the seat. I mean, these are the highly personal, everyday items of a traveler who fully intends to finish their trip, right? You definitely don't take your shoes off if you're planning a sudden dramatic exit, and you certainly don't leave your phone sitting out. The physical footprint of a person was totally intact right there in the cabin.
But here's the absolute kicker. The belongings were there. The train was definitely still moving, but the man himself, completely gone. I know, it sounds exactly like the setup to some elaborate magic trick, but this was absolute reality. The guy had a ticket, his name was literally on the passenger list, and multiple people distinctly remembered seeing him physically walk into that coach. Yet when morning broke, he was just vanished. And not a single person on that train could explain how a grown man just evaporates from a sealed, moving metal tube. Let's actually map out the timeline of that night, because this makes the whole thing even more baffling. Getting the exact sequence of events is absolutely crucial here. At 11:47 p.m., our passenger boards. Just 13 minutes later, right at midnight, the train makes a routine station stop. Doors open, folks get off, folks get on, and the train rolls right back into the dark. Nothing seems weird at all. Then, boom, the 5:30 a.m. discovery. That is an incredibly tight window. We're talking about a span of just a few hours in the dead of night. Every single second in that timeline is a piece of a giant puzzle where the main piece is just missing. Now, you might be wondering, was this guy some kind of international spy, a fugitive on the run? No way. He was a completely ordinary traveler, not famous, not wanted by the police. People who actually knew him said there was absolutely nothing unusual going on in his life at the time. In fact, the only notable detail from that entire night came from a fellow passenger before that midnight stop. They noticed he just kept looking down at his phone. That's it. Just a normal guy sitting in a seat checking his screen. Nothing that screams, I'm about to become the center of a massive missing persons case. So when the authorities get the call that morning, they don't just brush it off. They launch a massive, immediate search of the train. But the physical investigation, it was incredibly frustrating. They checked every compartment, every single bathroom, every connecting area, and what did they find? No sign of a struggle. No blood. No broken windows. Absolutely nothing to show there was a fight or some desperate escape. A train is a pretty confined space. If something bad happens, it leaves a trace. But here, the train was completely clean. Which brings us face to face with the massive paradox investigators were staring down. Left behind, clothes, personal documents, and luggage. Missing, the passenger. I really want us to think about the logic here for a second. If you're plotting to disappear and start a brand new life, your ID and your vital documents are quite literally the last things you leave behind. Finding his ID in his bags heavily, and I mean heavily, suggests this wasn't a plan to get away. Or actually, scratch that. If it was planned, it definitely wasn't supposed to happen with him abandoning all his stuff. The logic just doesn't add up. So what do you even do in this situation? You've got a missing person, a spotless crime scene, and a pile of abandoned luggage. Investigators had to completely reconstruct the journey and break down the possibilities, keeping in mind the strict physical rules of being on a moving train. We basically have three main theories to explore here. As we walk through them, I'd love for you to weigh the evidence for yourself, because every single one of these theories comes with some major logical hurdles. All right, theory one is definitely the most straightforward. He just left the train, maybe during that midnight stop, or some other quick pause in the night. He simply got up and walked out into the dark. But let's look at the roadblocks with this one. Why on earth would he leave his luggage? Why leave the documents? And more importantly, a train station at midnight isn't completely a ghost town. With doors opening and people shuffling around, why didn't a single person remember seeing a guy walk off the train, leaving his entire life sitting on the seat? It's possible, sure, but highly, highly improbable. Okay, let's look at theory two, a terrible accident.
The thought here is that he accidentally fell from the moving train. Maybe he forced a door open to get some fresh air, lost his balance, and just vanished into the night. It's a super terrifying thought, and physically speaking, yeah, it's possible, but from an investigative side, you need proof. Police literally scoured the railway tracks and the woods along the entire route. To put this into perspective, if someone falls from a train moving at those speeds, there is going to be physical evidence left behind, but they found absolutely zero evidence out there. Which brings us to theory 3, and this is easily the most disturbing one. Someone helped him disappear. This introduces foul play, or a really coordinated assisted escape. This theory says, hey, maybe this wasn't an accident at all. Maybe someone on that train knew exactly who he was. Maybe someone was waiting at a very specific spot down the tracks. Or maybe the whole thing was meticulously planned out before he ever even bought a ticket. Now, this totally answers how he vanished so cleanly, but it leaves us with a massive void when it comes to the motive.
But hold on, because here is the major plot twist that turned this entire case totally upside down. Investigators were looking through the items left behind, right? Specifically, that cell phone. Well, they pulled the data logs and they found bizarre phone activity happening right around the exact time he supposedly vanished. Someone was actively interacting with that device. But wait a minute, if the guy had already disappeared, who in the world was using his phone? Was it him making one final digital connection before dipping out? Or was it someone else entirely?
That one single detail transforms the entire investigation. Suddenly, this isn't just a guy who absent-mindedly tumbled out a door. This digital footprint, this totally unexpected phone activity, shifted the authorities' entire perspective. What initially looked like a bizarre, tragic accident now looked like something deeply complicated, and honestly, possibly very sinister. That phone data proved there was an active, conscious event taking place at the exact moment the physical timeline goes totally dark.
Let's break this down structurally so we can really see it. We know exactly where the train was physically located on the tracks. We know exactly when and where it stopped, and we know exactly when that empty seat was found at 5:30 a.m. But nestled right there in the middle is what investigators call the unexplained gap. We have all the GPS and scheduling data we could ever want, but there are still these crucial missing hours where the absolute truth of this disappearance is just hidden from us.
The missing hours. I really want to lean into just how unsettling this blank space is. Ask any investigator, and they'll tell you the most critical evidence in a mystery is almost always hiding inside the gap. The train kept moving, the tracks kept flying by, but for those few hours, reality essentially fractured. Nobody can confidently say what went down in that dark window of time. The timeline itself exists, sure, but the actual story inside of it, it's been completely erased.
And because of that massive gap, we're left with an enduring debate that is still going strong years later. Was it an accident? Did he deliberately run away? Was someone else involved? Was it all planned? Look, I want to be completely objective here. Without hard physical proof to bridge that gap in the timeline, none of these theories hit the nail on the head. Every single answer we try to come up with just spawns a new, frustrating question. The suitcase was still there. The phone was still there. The train finished its route. The puzzle pieces are on the table, but they simply do not fit together.
When you really step back and look at it all, perhaps the most terrifying part isn't the crazy theories or the weird phone data. It's the ordinary beginning. Just a normal guy buying a normal ticket. He boarded a train, sat down, and started a trip exactly like millions of us do every single day. There was no tearful goodbye, no ominous movie villain warning, and then his story just suddenly, inexplicably stopped. Which leaves us with this final haunting question. How does a person literally disappear from a moving train without leaving a single clear trace? We've walked through the crazy timeline, we've looked at all the abandoned stuff, and we've weighed the theories together. Maybe someday some forgotten piece of paper, an old photo, or a witness who finally remembers one tiny detail will crack this wide open. But until then, the mystery of the empty seat lives on. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the details and never stop trying to fill in the gaps.